A very good afternoon to all of you. My late father would tell me that it was easier to write a novel than a short story, because in a short story you have to compress in a few pages what in a novel you can take several hundred pages to say. I believe he was right, and the challenge before me this afternoon is to convert a novel, and in this case a lengthy novel on unbundling creative potential, into a short story. Creativity is indisputably the singular natural resource among all the resources that are available to humankind. It is indisputably the original natural resource because it is that one quality that makes us genuinely and truly human, by giving us the exceptional power to transform the conditions of the universe that we live in. And for that reason, creativity is best defined simply as moving away from the standard way of doing things. It refers to courage, it refers to audacity, it refers to innovation, it refers to vision, all of which combine to make change possible in this universe. Over the past 20 years, I have developed a few guidelines on unbundling creative potential. And it seems to me essential to begin, before I begin, to say that I offer these remarks in deep humility and surrender to you, in the hope that in this afternoon it will be of some value in the sharing. The first, of course, is the first rule, golden rule. I call them 10 golden rules to unbundle creative potential. And the first of them is a man cannot become a child again, or he becomes childish, but it is possible to become childlike. And therefore I say, become a child, not childish. By that I mean, there was this tremendous novel that was written by this Norwegian philosopher about 10 years ago called Sophie's World. He wrote this novel as a response to his 15-year-old daughter. And it was the history of Western philosophy written in the form of a novel. It's called Sophie's World. Some of you must have read that work. It's by Jostein Gaarder. And in one of the first few pages, he says, one of the qualities that philosophers share with any other human species in this universe is with children, because they have this astonishing sense of wonder and puzzle that they receive the universe on an everyday basis. So the first rule is, can we become childlike in the way we receive the universe, with a bit of astonishment, with a bit of puzzle, wonderment, mystery. The second is related to the word, is very intimately related to the first, and that is to avoid ego, identity, and fear. The reason for this is that these are the three principal enemies of learning. One is ego, the sense that I command, I do. It's a good idea to always reduce this to its barest minimum. The second is identity. I'm a professor, so I know everything. There is nothing that I do not know. So even if somebody asks me a question that I cannot answer, I must be able to bullshit, but convincingly, etc., etc. This comes from identity and fear. So these I describe are the biggest three enemies of learning, because learning is, in the ultimate analysis, it's about unlearning. It's about developing the capacity to give up what we regard as holy, sacrosanct over the years, give that up and replace that with vibrant new knowledge. So avoid ego, identity, fear. The third is, of course, to collapse roles, domains, and functions all in one. In the world that I come from, which is the world of management, we have a number of subdomains, domains like marketing, production, IT, human resources, and so on. The sense of this third rule is that whenever you look at the larger picture, never ignore the detail. And when you look at the detail, never ignore the larger picture. There's a wonderful dialectic between the two that connects the two. And for a creative mind, it's absolutely essential that the link between the small and the big remain constant. The fourth is, of course, institutionalized doubt. And by this I mean that it's a good idea to ask questions. It's a good idea to know that there is no single gospel that answers everything. It doesn't exist. And therefore, it's a good idea to interrogate. It's a good idea to question. Question, but when we question, we must retain the childlike element that makes questioning so penetrating. I'm reminded of a marvelous story in the Gospel according to St. Matthew, when Jesus is sitting under a tree, and a couple of children come running to him saying, Rabbi, Rabbi, somebody has told them God is sitting under the tree. So they said, let's go and discover and see who this God is. That's how children are. They're without fear. They're without identity, without ego. Jesus is surrounded by his disciples, and guess what the function of disciples the world over is? People usually answer that question by saying they propagate the message of the master. I say no, their job is to prevent access to the master. And they behaved characteristically. They started shooing these children away. They said, move away, don't you know that Christ, that God is sitting under the tree? He has no time for you, move away. Jesus hears these disciples, and these are his exact words to them. He says, do not prevent their access to me, because the kingdom of God belongs to he who has the mentality of a child. The upshot, the lesson, it's a profound parable, having a very profound parable, a very profound lesson, which is that if you cannot retain the pristine innocence that this child exhibits, you have no place in my kingdom. The next, of course, is the past is not the future. Most people, most individuals, most human beings, we always tend to extrapolate, contemplate our future by extrapolating the past. It's a disease that a lot of us suffer from, and I used to suffer from it, and I still do sometimes suffer from it, but it's not true. The past is actually, the future is not based on the past, the future is based on the present. The human mind is unfortunately conditioned in such a way that it either projects into the future or it projects into the past, and thereby it loses the divinity contained in the present. So live in the present. The next, of course, the sixth golden rule is intensify appreciative inquiry and deep questioning. Appreciative inquiry, what is it? Well, simply put, it's about developing a way in which you view the world. And that, I believe, is what the function of education principally is. It's about a way of viewing the world. Appreciative inquiry and deep questioning. Deep questioning refers to the fears that you don't want to have. And what I submit humbly before you is self-development, or a creative imagination develops between these two poles. On the one hand, intensifying appreciative inquiry, and on the other hand, avoiding the fears or engaging the fears that you don't want to have. It is between these two poles that self-development essentially takes place. It is all about self-inquiry. By that I mean that a creative mind is constantly meeting itself. Because in the end, ladies and gentlemen, we only meet ourselves. We don't meet others. We often believe that others are responsible for our problems, but actually, it's the other way around. We are always responsible for the situations we create and the realities that we create. So the more and more we go into self-inquiry, the more and more we delve deep within ourselves, the more and more we try to examine and find out what our vision in life is, what are the values that we stand for, the clarity that we have between vision and values and context. Let me repeat that because I've spoken very fast. There are four essential elements to a creative imagination. The first is vision. Vision is about what you want to accomplish in this life. The second is about values. If vision is about where you want to go in life, values is about how you want to get there. The third is about developing a fit, if you like, between the shoe and the sock. The shoe must fit the sock, which means you must have clarity about both your vision and your values. If you have a vision to be a pilot, well, not going by air cannot be a value for you because it militates against the vision that you have. So your vision must fit the value. That's clarity. And the fourth is context, or the environment that you live in. It's absolutely important to develop a deep understanding of context. Context is a very complex word. It's a rich word. If I, for example, have a better offer from another country, let us say 2 months from now, I have to take a lot of decisions about understanding context. Since I'm an academic, I need to know what the standards of that particular institution are. I need to know what global academic standards are. I need to know what local academic standards are. I need to know how standards vary in different parts of the world. An understanding of all these factors is an understanding of context. A creative imagination, therefore, looks both at vision, value, clarity, context. And the way I summarize that is intensify appreciative inquiry. It's a way of developing a way in which you view the world, getting rid of prejudices, division, hatred, and trying to make this world a little more inclusive. That on the one hand, and deep fears, which is deep questioning, which refers to the fears that you don't want to have. The seventh golden rule is, according to me, and I again offer this to you in humility, and I'm a little mischievous because I have a creative disposition myself, past successes are definitely obstacles in your future. The problem with past successes is that they leave a deep imprint on your mind. They impact you in such a way that you think that these successes can be replicated. Contrary to popular belief, success can never be replicated. They're always limited by a certain time, condition, and historical setting. So it's a good idea that you had a great success in the past. It's a wonderful thing that you stood first and got a gold medal when you did your master's, or you produced this fantastic, magnificent doctoral dissertation. But guess what? It's over. As the German philosopher Goethe once said, the past is not merely past, P-A-S-T, it's also P-A-S-S-E-D. It can never come back. So learn to live in the present and negotiate the present. That's what I call baggage. The past always creates baggage, and that's never a good thing for a creative mind. Never absolutize self-image. Why? Because a lot of us develop self-images. Every one of us here in this room, as well as in the rest of the universe, we all have self-images. And we create them and we manufacture them for a wide variety of reasons. We want to be liked for who we are and who we are not. We want to be respected. We want to be recognized for who we are, and so on, and so on, and so on. I have no problems with self-image, but I have a serious problem when you absolutize self-image. It is important to understand that every human being is pregnant with 1 million, billion, 10 billion different potentials. It's a well-known, established psychological piece of research which says today that human beings tend to live only 20% of their capacity. So we use only a fraction of it. So never absolutize self-image. If I ask somebody, hey, what is the image that you have about yourself? I usually get the answer, I'm honest, I have a strong sense of integrity, and I'm hardworking. Wonderful. But don't restrict it to these 3 things. Understand that you can develop many, many things. There is no limit to self-improvement. There is absolutely no limit. So investigate, live life to the full. Every minute should be created in creating something else, and in what I call elevating conversation. Actually, we're born in the universe to elevate conversation, not degrade it. Accept your vulnerability. I often deal, as I said, I come from the world of management, so very often I have managers telling me, Prof, you live in an ivory tower. You know, you're asking us to be vulnerable in front of our boss, but our boss will lose respect for us. This is completely nonsensical. It's nonsensical because people actually respect you when you speak the truth. And you should never be afraid of admitting your own vulnerability. For a creative mind to display your vulnerability comfortably in a public space, I think is a great merit. It's not to be frowned at. And the 10th, is of course disable core barriers. What I mean by that is every single human being in this planet is pregnant with 2 types of potentials. Yes, one, where we have a lot of strengths, but we also have a lot of core barriers. We also have a lot of weaknesses, including me, including you. The point in life is to disable what I call your core incompetencies. The word core competence was coined by a colleague of mine in the University of Michigan called Professor C.K. Prahlad. And of course, we use it today in a wide variety of ways. Prahlad speaks of core competence in relation to companies. I speak about core incompetence in relation to practicing managers, individuals like you and me. And the point in life is to disable constantly those incompetencies. The moment we do that, we go, we try, we succeed in elevating conversation. So these, very briefly, are the 10 golden rules. And before I close, I would like to gently remind all of us present that the purpose of globalization is not to create, another billion McDonald's in this world. That's a very primitive view of globalization. And one of the best definitions of globalization that I've come across comes from the Nobel Poet Laureate of my country, Mr. Rabindranath Tagore. He received the Nobel Prize way back in the 1920s. And in a series of lectures that he gave to the United States, he said, "The point is not to eliminate differences, but how to unite by keeping differences intact." If all of us were of the same mind, the world would be a very boring place. The point is to respect differences, respect diversity, respect people's locations. Thank you.